Alaikum. So last time we started the topic of highway safety, and in that topic we looked at some trends from USA and Bahrain, and we saw that the accidents are decreasing, and then we discussed the change in priorities of the traffic engineers, which have resulted in the reduction in accidents. And then we looked at the procedure for doing highway safety analysis and what are the countermeasures, and then we narrowed down the list to countermeasures that work, or the treatments or the countermeasures on which we can focus on as traffic engineers. Today we will look at different approaches for increasing highway safety, okay, or different approaches for reducing, you can say, crashes. So there are 5 approaches which we will discuss, okay, one by one, starting with exposure control. Now, exposure is exposure to the risk of accident. Now, while you are on the road as a driver, passenger, pedestrian, bicyclist, whatever, while you are on the road, you are exposed to the risk of accident. Okay, so exposure control means reducing your exposure to the risk of accident, and that can only happen because of 2 things. Or that can only happen because of one thing: if you reduce the number of vehicle miles traveled. Okay, exposure control can happen if you reduce the number of vehicle miles traveled. Okay, now vehicle miles traveled, we have discussed it earlier, is a product of 2 things: number of vehicles on the road and the length of the road, or in this case, the length of the trip. Okay, so if there are more drivers on the road, vehicle miles traveled will increase. Okay, more cars or more volume on the road, that means the vehicle miles traveled will increase. And I showed you in the previous lecture that time of the day and day of the week are factors that can affect the number of accidents, number of crashes. And there I also mentioned at that time that these are also the factors which affect the volumes on the road. We have discussed in volume studies. So with this, if you match these 2 points together, then you can say volume affects the number of accidents. If you decrease the number of cars on the road, then you can decrease the number of the risk of accidents on the road as well. Okay, the risk of crashes on the road. And vehicle miles traveled. So if drivers, vehicle miles traveled means if you are going for longer distances, that means you are on the road for longer time, and that means your exposure is increased. Okay, because you're on the road for longer time, that means your exposure has increased. Okay, now you are exposed to the risk of accident for longer time. Okay, so reducing vehicle miles means that you reduce the number of cars on the road as well as the trip lengths of the people who are traveling in those cars. Okay, now these things are difficult to do in countries like USA and Bahrain, which are auto dependent, meaning everybody has a car. Okay, and if not more than one car. Everybody has more than one car, if not at least one car, and then how do you how do you tell them, okay, don't use a car? Okay, they have it. Okay, so it's very easy and convenient for them to use the cars. But there are some strategies which can be applied. Okay, some of them are already applied worldwide, including Bahrain. So let us go through them. Diversion of travel to public transportation modes, buses, rails, and so on. Okay, so you divert the drivers and the car users to public transportation by providing them better service, reliable. The buses should be reliable, they should be frequent, the bus stops should be more, okay, they should be fast, they should be cheap, and so on and so forth. Some of them we will discuss in some other strategies as well, and some other approaches as well. But the main thing is you divert people to public transportation so that you reduce the number of cars on the road. Okay, now how do you divert them? You make public transportation modes better in terms of speed and cost and comfort and so on and so forth. Okay, convenience and so on. Substitution of telecommunications for travel. So we have now online banking, we have online shopping, we have booking of appointments for health and so many things online. So paying your bills. So all these things are being done online now. So if they were not done online, for example, in Pakistan, you still have to pay your bills by going to the bank. Okay, so at the start of every month, you will see big queues in front of the bank. Okay, and obviously these queues are, for people who have come from their house, so they have already made the trip. Okay, so they were on the road, they were using their bikes or cars to come to the bank. So if this thing was happening online, like for us, it happens online. This trip will not happen. The trip to the bank is not required. Okay, so reduce the number of cars and reduce the number of trips on the road. Okay. So, obviously some telecommunication services are still all over the world. Like online shopping is very common now all over the world. Food delivery and so on, this is all over the world. Okay, so some of the trips have already been taken care of by these online services. Okay, all around the world, not only in Bahrain or Pakistan or USA, all around the world. Okay, so you can encourage these things more to reduce the travel. Okay, then you can implement policies, taxes, and fees to discourage auto ownership and car use. Okay, so for example, in Pakistan, the taxes on fuel as well as car is very high. Okay, so the price of the fuel becomes doubled. The taxes on the car and fuel are almost the same as the actual price. Okay, so because of that, there are less people in Pakistan who own and afford a car as compared to Bahrain or some other countries. Okay, even in Bahrain, 2 or 3 years ago, they implemented the VAT. Okay, but the amount was very small, so you cannot see the changes. Okay, there were no big changes. But the countries in which taxes and fees are higher, you can see the changes. Okay, so fees on licensing, fees on vehicle registration. Okay, they have already increased it, I think. Licensing fees are already increased. Okay, then policies. Okay, make the policies so that people will be discouraged to use the cars. Okay, so maybe provide them better public transportation services, make the import of the cars more expensive and more strict and so on and so forth. Okay, so things to make sure. Now, when you are paying these taxes and fees, you feel that government is earning the money. It's not only about earning the money; it is also about reducing the congestion on the road and reducing the number of accidents on the road. Then the reorganization of the land use to minimize the travel distances. So you plan your area in such a way that people don't have to travel for long or at all for their essential services. For example, if you have a store near the house, okay, you have a bank, you have a health center, okay, you have a park. So in order to go to these to use these essential services, you may not need to take your car out. Okay, or even if you do that, you are doing it for just few minutes. Okay, so if you need bread, you don't have to travel for 10 minutes. You don't have to be in your car for 10-15 minutes to go to the store and take the bread or any other necessity. Okay, you can, like in my case, I can just walk to the cold store and I can get the bread or the milk or anything, any of the necessary items. Okay, so my car trips are reduced. Okay, same thing with the park, same thing with the bank and so on and so forth. Okay, a gas station and so on. If these things are not organized properly, then obviously for each and every trip, you will be on the road for longer time. So this is about reducing your trip length. Then restrictions on vehicles and drivers. Okay, so we have the restrictions for licensing, right? Restriction for health, restriction for eyesight, restriction for training, restriction for the test. Okay, and I already mentioned the fees and everything. Then vehicle registration, insurance. Okay, your own record, your record of accident and penalties. All these things are what? Restrictions. Okay, so they are binding you that if you want to own a car or have a license, then you have to go through this. So there may be some people who cannot do this. Somebody very old, someone who has just come into Bahrain, he may not be able to do all these things. So that person will not come on the road with his or her car. Okay, so these are exposure control strategies. Then we have crash risk control and crash prevention strategies. Crash risk control is a broad term, comprehensive term. It includes two things. It includes prevention of crashes and a reduction of severity of the crashes. Okay, so like we said in the previous lecture, there are so many things affecting the accidents and crashes on the road that they are bound to happen at some point of time, in spite of your efforts, irrespective of your efforts, no matter whatever you are doing, crashes are bound to happen. Okay, they may be in less number, but they are bound to happen. So then crash risk control should also include reducing the severity of the crashes. So even when the crash happens, you make sure that its severity is less. Nobody is getting injured or killed. Okay, there is no fatality, there is no severity, there is no injury. Okay, so reducing the severity of injuries and fatalities is also part of crash risk control. Okay, so let us discuss the two parts of crash risk control, starting with crash prevention. How can we prevent crashes? Driver and pedestrian training. Okay, drivers are bound to have some training before they get the license, right? It is a mandatory requirement for them. It is mandatory for them. Pedestrians take training, for example, in open seminars, okay, through social media or through any other type of media which is for general public. Okay, so you see these banners on the roads. There used to be a traffic week happening every year. I think this year it didn't happen because of COVID. But these steps are taken. So sometimes the traffic department arranges seminars in the schools. Okay, and even if they don't do it, you are bound to receive some information, some education related to traffic in your schools. Okay, so if they are not doing it, the teachers and the parents would do it. Okay, some students told me that there used to be a course. I'm not sure whether it's still going on or not, but some of them said, all of them didn't say that they received a course. So they said, some of them said there used to be a course in their schools for traffic laws and regulations. Okay, so these type of things, because pedestrian is everybody, right? Pedestrian is everybody. So these courses will help them to understand the traffic laws and travel on the road safely, even if they are pedestrians. Okay, so pedestrian training is anything which you are doing for general public. Okay, any information you are giving to the public as a whole. The removal of drivers with bad driving records. So you have the point system now, right? So if you exceed a certain limit of the points, they can suspend your license or they can, cancel your license. So getting the license is not the only thing. You have to still save your license as well. Okay, so these are, like we discussed in the previous case, this is also one of the policies, okay, to discourage the car ownership and so on. So even if you get the license one time, if you are a bad driver, you will not hold it, you will not keep it. Provision of better highway designs and control devices to make sure there are less errors and the drivers are encouraged to drive in a better manner. So for example, let me give you two examples. If you have a lane marking on the road, this encourages, or the drivers tend to follow the lane markings whenever they are there. It's a natural tendency for trained drivers. For skilled drivers, they follow the lane marking if it is there. But the lane marking is worn off, you did not repaint it for so many years. Then the drivers are, they're encouraged to, choose their own space where they want to move, how they want to move. Okay, so you are encouraging bad driving behavior in that case. Okay, and lane markings, you are doing the reverse. Similarly, you have you may have seen before COVID in the education area, the roundabouts were jam-packed. Okay, because of so much traffic, the roundabouts were jam-packed, and people were standing in the middle of the roundabout, which is not a good driving practice. But with so much traffic and without a signal, this was bound to happen. Okay, so you did not use the appropriate control device on the intersection, and people, it is still happening on so many roundabouts around the kingdom. Okay, the people are stopping in the middle of the roundabout because of traffic jam. The queue is extending up to the roundabout, so they don't have anywhere else to go. Okay, so you are not using the appropriate control device, so people are, doing something which is inappropriate, which is actually against the law, right? You cannot stop it in the middle of the roundabout, but nobody can do anything about it because there's traffic jam and there's no signal there. Okay. Then risk control strategies basically means you design the sides of the road, okay, with objects that can absorb the impact of the crash. So if a car goes on and hits the side of the road or the median of the road, the objects on the side and the median are devices or devices or objects or materials that can absorb the impact. Okay, let me give you an example. So for you may have seen near the intersections they put these orange poles, small orange poles. Okay, near the island of the median, near the island they have these poles. Okay, very small poles. Or you must have seen the orange cones. They're made up of the same material, the fiber plastic material. Okay, so what is the benefit of having them? If a car hits them the orange pole or the orange cone, it will not create much damage to the car. Okay, the driver is saved, the passenger is saved, and so on. He can still feel the impact. Something has hit the car, and if you want to give him the warning, then the cone or the pole is giving him the warning that you should not, continue in this direction. Okay, you must have seen these orange cones near accident sites and construction sites and maintenance work and so on and so forth. Okay, so these orange cones and poles do not cause much damage to the car. In fact, they bend themselves when the car hits them. Okay, so this is what we call as impact attenuating devices. Impact attenuating devices, meaning they will absorb the impact, causing less damage to the car. Because the car is damaged, obviously the person inside the car will get injured, or he may die as well. So you can imagine what can happen if they, instead of using these orange cones, they are using concrete barriers. Still, on construction sites which are dangerous, on which they are using big equipment, they have put concrete barriers instead of these orange cones. And you can imagine the difference of damage if your car hits a concrete barrier instead of this fiber cone. Okay, so there's another example of impact attenuating device in this video. Okay, so instead of these guardrails, they have these rollers. Okay, so the car hits the rollers and it is deflected back towards the road. Okay, and obviously the rollers, once the car hits them, you can see even if a truck hits them, they do not get damaged because they are rolling, so they are in motion. So because of their flexibility of motion, they are not damaged that much, even with the truck. And when the truck hits them, it is deflected back towards the road with minimum damage. Again, you can see the material is fiber, and obviously that will not cause much damage to the vehicle. Okay, so these are known as impact attenuating devices, and they are part of risk control strategies because these devices will cause the injury to the driver or the passengers. Then behavior modification approaches include diverting drivers to public transport. Okay, we have already discussed diverting travelers to public transport. Okay, within those, drivers are more important than any other type of road user. Why? Because drivers are more likely to use a vehicle because they can drive themselves, right? They are not dependent upon anyone else. So, for example, if I have a kid who is dependent upon me to take him to any place, so if I'm using the car, then I will take him by car. But if I don't have a car and he is dependent upon me, so he cannot use a car as well, right? So if you divert the drivers, then you are diverting many other people who are dependent upon these drivers. Okay. Secondly, obviously drivers, if I don't know how to drive, even if you give me a car, I will not drive. Okay, and I will not buy a car as well. So diverting drivers is the most important thing. It will have a bigger effect. So how to divert the drivers to public transport? Like I said, you have to make public transport more attractive for them. How do you make it more attractive? For any trip, whenever you are choosing the mode of your transport, how should I go from place A to place B? Okay, there are two most important factors for you. There are many other factors which we have discussed in chapter 2 of highway as well, but there are two most important factors, which is the cost and time. The cost and time. So the mode which is cheaper and faster will be more attractive to you than any other mode of transportation. So in terms of cost, okay, you have to give subsidies to the travelers. Subsidies basically to the public transport service companies or public transport service organizations. Okay, so for example, in Bahrain we have bus transport company, right? So that transport company actually receives the subsidy from the government so that it can charge a lower fare from the traveler. So for example, if you are paying 500 fares to the bus or to go by the bus, the actual cost of your trip is not 500 fares. Some of that is already given by the government to the bus company, and they are just charging you the remaining amount. Now the buses in Bahrain are not so, you know, they are not so, you can say, the bus system, it's not high end, okay, compared to metro or light rail or something like that. It is very low end, okay, it is low in terms of technology and so on. So the subsidy and the cost is very low, but if you compare it with the metro service or a light rail service or any other subway or something, then the cost goes in millions and billions of dollars. Okay, so those services without subsidies cannot be used by any travelers. But the cost is so high for the system. Okay, so all those systems work on subsidies. Okay, otherwise in terms of cost, these systems will become infeasible. Then how do we make the public transport more attractive in terms of speed or in terms of time? You provide them separate lanes, or if it's a metro or lighter service, then you provide them separate space from where they can move without any interruption. Okay, so here they are saying restricting lane use, but you can imagine if it's a metro or lighter service, and it is also included in this, because these services have their own tracks and nobody is allowed to enter or interrupt these tracks. Okay, so this is again, and this is why they can have higher speeds. These services can have higher speeds because they are moving in their exclusive spaces, in their exclusive tracks. Okay, then we have drivers and pedestrian training programs to move them away from the cars. Okay, these are not only to train them for safety. This is also to move them away from the cars. So you tell them, if you are using a car, you are adding to the pollution. There are so many chances of accidents and so on and so forth. This is something additional which you do to modify their behavior. Okay, and then we have enforcement technologies. Okay, the traffic cameras like we have. So you make sure whenever the driver makes any mistake, you catch him. Okay, so that mistake may not have resulted in an accident, but that is still a mistake. Okay, this time he was saved, but next time when he makes the same mistake, if he is not caught, obviously his behavior will not change. Okay, if he is not penalized the first time, he will continue doing it. Okay, so you penalize him by enforcing the law in him. Okay, so he doesn't repeat the same mistake. Okay, so if he's abiding by the law, there are less chances of him getting into an accident. So enforcement technologies, including the online fines and traffic cameras and so on and so forth. Okay, but obviously these technologies cannot be implemented on all the roads and intersections, right? Even now, with so many years have passed since traffic cameras are in use, they are not used on all the intersections and segments, right? Because they are expensive, you need to buy them, install them, monitor them, maintain them, and so on and so forth. Okay, so they have their advantages, but still you cannot use them on all segments and intersections. Okay, so they can help, but obviously they have limited application. Then injury control strategies. Injury control means you make sure the victim of the crash can survive. Survive meaning survive without any death. Survival basically means no death, right? So you make sure whoever is part of the accident has survived. Now during the accident, people who get injured or then they eventually die as well are the people who are inside the vehicle. So in a crash, so basically injury control strategies have revolved around improving the inner safety, the inside safety of the vehicles, okay, through vehicle design. So injury control strategies mainly involve changing the vehicle design to improve the safety features for the drivers and the passengers. Okay. So for example, we have seat belts and shoulder harnesses. Shoulder harnesses are basically for kids. So they are like backpacks. They come over the shoulders, right? Seat belts are inclined. They come over one shoulder, go towards your waist. But shoulder harnesses, they come straight, over the shoulders. And then we have laws. If you have to use a seat belt. Using seat belt is a law. If you have a kid, then using a shoulder harness is a law, and so on and so forth. Child seats and the system to restrain the child seats. This is again part of the law. Okay, if you have a child in your car, then you should have a child seat, and that child seat must be restrained to the car with the belt and everything. Okay, this is part of the law. Anti-burst door locks. So the door locks which we are using for the cars, they are anti-burst, so they don't get jammed so easily. You know, even if you have an accident, the door is now what you call the door is badly damaged and it is in a bad shape, but still you can open the lock so that people do not get trapped inside the car. Okay, because you may have to provide them emergency services and so on. So if they are trapped inside the car, there are more chances of getting into serious injuries and deaths as well. Okay, so even if the door is completely damaged, still in most of the cases you can open it. Most of the cases, obviously there are extreme cases as well. Okay. So even if the door is bent from the middle, it will still open. I have tried it, believe me. Tried it in an old car. I've tried it in an old car. I used to have an old car, and I had an accident, and the door is still open. It took some time to open for the first time, but then and then I did not repair it. Okay, that is the downside of it. Then you don't repair your cars. Okay, padded instrument panels including the things which you have in front of you. The dashboard, the steering wheel, the side where you have the charging panel and the radio and the music system and everything. So all those things are not padded. Okay, so they have soft padding on top of them. So if you are not wearing the seat belt, you get into an accident and your head hits the panel in front of you, the steering wheel or the dashboard or whatever. It is padded, so it will not create that much impact on you. If the padding was not there, like it was not there in the old cars, it used to create a bigger impact for the person. Okay. And those panels also sometimes would break, and they can the pieces get in your eyes or something like that. Then we have energy absorbing steering posts and crumple zones. So steering post is the base of the steering wheel. Steering post means the base of the steering wheel. So steering wheel is padded. But if there is no energy absorbing, means the steering post has some flexibility. Very minor flexibility to a very minor extent. Okay, like in few millimeters. So whenever something hits the steering post or there's some pressure on the steering wheel, the steering, like extreme pressure, okay, so like something coming and hitting it with full force, okay, like the driver or something, then the steering post can move slightly down and up, okay, like a foam, like the foam which you have on the back, but very slightly, very slight. Okay, the reason is when if you are hitting something which is very rigid, then it will create more impact and more pressure on you. Okay, but if that thing is flexible, even that little bit flexibility will reduce the pressure and the impact on you. Okay, same thing with the seats as well. Now you have to keep in mind that you are tied, or you are supposed to be tied to the seat because of the seat belt. Okay, so if this is your seat, okay, so you are tied to the seat with the seat belt. Now if there is a crash, and that crash has created impact on you, okay, or on the seat, let me call it this way. So if the seat is rigid in its place, then this whole impact will be transferred to your body. Okay, because something has hit the car, and the seat is not allowed to move, and you are attached with the seat, so that whole impact will be taken by you. That whole pressure of impact or crash will be taken by you, because you are attached to the seat with the seat belt. You cannot move. So we have a small crumple zone here. Crumple zone means the seat can move slightly backward or forward. Okay. So again, few millimeters, and this is again in case of extreme pressure, extreme impact. Okay, you will not do it manually. Okay. So with that movement, the flexibility of this movement reduces the pressure on your body. Okay, otherwise, what used to happen without the crumple zone, whenever there was an impact and people were tied to the seat belt, they used to get injured in the places where the seatbelt was tied, especially the shoulder, the rib, and the waist area, and so on. Okay, with the crumple zone, the seat is moving with you slightly, then it reduces the pressure on your on your body. Okay, then we have side door beams. Those are breakable. Again, in case you get stuck in the car, if somebody needs to get you out, then side door beams are more easily breakable, and so on. We have airbags. Okay, again, to make sure you don't go and hit the steering wheel directly. Okay, although it is padded, but again it will cause some damage. Headrest and restraints. So earlier seats used to be like this. There was no headrest here, but now we have seats. All modern cars have headrest here. Okay, again, what's the reason? Your body is tied to the seat, okay, and your neck is free. Your neck is free. So whenever, if the impact is large, if the impact is very significant, then your body is tied to the seat, but your neck is free. So it was creating more movement, you can say, because your neck has now become a cantilever, right? So the whole thing is tight and your neck is free, so it creates more movement and forces in the neck area. So people used to have broken necks, although they were using the seat belts. So this headrest provides a support to your neck. It provides support to your neck. Okay. So in front of you you have the airbag, behind you you have the headrest. Shatterproof glasses. The front shield and the rear shield of the car are shatterproof. Okay. So if you have a glass, like the glass, okay, the water glass, and you throw it or you drop it on the floor, it will break into pieces. Okay, and each piece will go in a different direction. Okay, but the same thing will not happen to the front or the rear shield of a car. Okay, even if there's a crack, the shield will remain in its place. Okay, you may have seen it in the garages and so on. Okay, the front shields get damaged, but still it is intact. There are no pieces coming out of it. Okay, they use some fiber or some steel wires in them. Okay, so that this makes the glass shatterproof. Okay, they don't get broken into pieces. Okay, then we have forgiving interior fittings. So there are many things in the car, right? Not only the panels and the steering wheel and so on. There are many things, handrest and the gearbox and the seats themselves. So all these things are now padded, made up with softer material and so on. Okay, so all these things are done to make sure the drivers and the passengers do not get serious injuries by something which is inside the car. Obviously, that thing will cause injury to them if there is an accident. Okay, the cause is the accident, but the thing which is causing the injury is inside the car. Okay, then we have post-injury management strategies, which is basically these strategies come into play when the accident has happened, and now we are trying to make sure the victim of the accident is surviving without any death. Okay. Now, traffic fatalities or deaths which happen during traffic crashes, there are three timelines for them. These these deaths or fatalities can happen in three different timelines. One is during the crash or instantly after the crash, within minutes. Okay, a death or fatality which happens during the crash or within few minutes of the crash. This type of fatality is 50% of all the deaths which happen during traffic crashes. 50% of all the fatalities or deaths which happen during traffic crashes, they happen instantly, okay, or during the crash, and they happen because of a serious trauma or injury to the head or to the heart, and extreme blood loss. Okay, these are the main reasons. So if the accident of that much severity has happened, then you cannot apply any post-injury management to save these fatalities. These fatalities cannot be saved after the accident, right? After the accident, you don't have any time. Okay, so you have to make sure you have to go back to the other strategies to make sure these type of accidents do not happen at all, okay, or the injury is not to that extent. The other type is the fatalities which happen during 1 to 2 hours of the crash. Okay, so the victim survived the accident and he lived for at least 1 hour after the accident. Okay, and these are, but then after that he died. So these fatalities are 35% of all the deaths which happen during traffic crashes. Okay, I'm using the word fatality and death every now and then, so you know that fatality means death. So 35% of all the fatalities or deaths which happen during crashes are within 1 to 2 hours of the crash. Okay, these people can be saved with the will of God if you have a good emergency response system. If somebody with medical care can get to the site and give the first aid to the victim, then they may be saved with the will of God. Then the third type is the fatalities which happen within 30 days of the crash. Okay, and the reason was something which they had in the crash. Okay, even for the second type, you have the same reasons: trauma to the head or the heart and the extreme blood loss. Okay, for the second type of fatalities, the reasons are the same. For the third type, the reasons are usually cessation or stopping of the brain activity. Okay, sometimes the person goes into coma because of the accident, then they die. Okay, or failure or some vital organ like the heart or liver or something like that. Okay, or infection in the wound of the crash. Okay, so these are the main reasons of people who die in the third category, and these are 15% of all the fatalities. Okay, 15% of the fatalities of traffic crashes happen during 30 days after the accident. Okay, so they survived the first period and the second period as well, but then after that they died. Again, if you have good medical facilities in your area, in your country, and the people have access to that, then with the will of God, the third type of fatalities can also be saved. So the post-injury management focuses on second and the third type happening after 1 to 2 hours or 30 days. For the first type, you need to provide them emergency medical care on the site, and for the last one, you need to provide them good medical facilities when they get to the hospital. Okay, so they should have access to all the necessary things which they require to survive. Now let us talk about crash statistics. Now, if you remember, in spot speed and travel time topic, we talked about statistics of central tendency and statistics of dispersion. So statistics means what? Statistics means something which you calculate from data. Something which you calculate from data, that is known as statistics. So we will see now what type of statistics we can calculate from the crash or the accident data. There are mainly three types of statistics related to crashes or related to crashes: crash occurrence statistics, crash involvement statistics, and crash severity statistics. Okay, crash occurrence means data related to number and type of accidents that happened. Okay, and for all the statistics we calculate rates. For all the statistics we calculate rates. For all the data related to accidents, we calculate their rate on some basis. So we take the accident data and we divide it with some number to calculate the rate. What type of rate we calculate, I will come to it in a few minutes. Okay, and I only have few minutes. Okay, so crash occurrence statistics means the rates which you calculate using the number and types of crashes. Number and types of crashes. So how many accidents happened and what type of accidents were these? Okay, so accidents can be accidents involving deaths, accidents involving injury, accidents involving only damage to the car. Okay, so how many of each type you have, and then you calculate the rate of it. That will be known as crash occurrence statistics. Crash involvement statistics means you collect data related to number and type of vehicles and drivers involved in the accident. So how many vehicles were involved in the accidents, how many drivers were involved in the accidents. Okay, you collect their data and you also collect what type of drivers and vehicles are involved. For example, if you collect this data for Barry, and you will find most of the accidents involve cars, not heavy vehicles, and most of the drivers are from younger age. Okay, as compared to old drivers. Okay, so So if you take this data and you calculate the rate of these things, then it will be known as a crash involvement statistics. Then crash severity. Severity is basically taking the rate of fatalities or deaths. The rate of fatalities or deaths which happen due to traffic crashes. Okay, this is what we call as crash severity statistics. Now, what type of analysis you can perform using these statistics? You can see them here. Okay, there are many others as well, but these are more common. First of all, you can establish the trends of accidents over time, something which I showed you in the last lecture. So you had the number of accidents for each year, so you can see the trend if they are increasing or decreasing. Obviously, if they're decreasing, that means you are doing something good. If they're increasing, that means you need to do something good. Okay. Then you can see the other 5 types of analysis are related to stratification. Stratification means classifying. Okay, classifying the crashes on some basis, classifying the crashes on the basis of some characteristic. Okay, dividing it into different classes, dividing into different numbers. So you have the total, and from the total now you identify this one belongs to this class, this one belongs to this group, and this one belongs to this group, and so on and so forth. Okay, so stratification means making layers or different divisions within the accident data. Okay, so for example, you can make divisions on the basis of highway type or geometric element. Okay, so we know the highway type, right? So you divide the accidents which happened, or dividing is separating. So you separate the crashes which happened on arterials, local streets, and collectors. Okay, that will be stratification on the basis of highway type. Or you divide it, or you separate them on the basis of geometric elements. How many happened on vertical curves? How many happened on horizontal curves? How many happened on intersections? So these are different geometric elements, right? So you divide the accidents which happen on different types of geometric elements. The stratification of driver characteristics. Okay, so driver characteristics can be, there are many different characteristics, but can be main are gender and age. Okay, so for example, if you take the data for Bahrain, you will find number of accidents by male drivers are more as compared to female. You know, I don't know the reason, but yeah, maybe people are already so much afraid of the female drivers, they don't go near them. Maybe. Okay, and I already told you about the age, right? Age, young drivers are more involved in accidents than others. Okay, so you guys need to be more careful. Then division on the basis of cause of accidents. Okay, so I showed you a figure, a number in the previous lecture that 97% of all accidents happening in Bahrain are because of human error. Okay, so you need to focus on human error then. Then stratification or division on the basis of crash type. So what type of crashes are happening? Were they head-on? Were they angle? Were they from the rear side? Were they from the front side? Okay, and then stratification on the basis of environmental conditions. So again, something which I showed you in the previous lecture, that most of the accidents happening in Bahrain are during daylight times. Okay, then some students told me in the highway course as part of the assignment that areas near the beaches in Bahrain, they have a more frequent problem of fog as well. So they can be more accidents happening in those areas during those times when the fog is there. Okay, so in different areas you may have different environmental conditions which have more accidents. So stratification will help you in doing what? Stratification will help you in deciding on which particular aspect of the accident you should focus. So if more accidents are happening because of humans, then you have to focus on training the drivers. Okay, if more accidents are happening, for example, because of fog, then you need to do something extra in your design for the time when you have the fog. Okay, if more accidents are happening because of on arterials, for example, then you need to provide more safety on the arterials. Okay, so stratification helps you to decide on which area of the accident you should focus and so on. Okay, then I told you earlier, crashes are not taken as numbers, they are always taken as rates. crashes are never taken as numbers, they are taken as rates. Why? Let me give you an example. If we have 100 accidents, 100 crashes in Bahrain and 100 crashes in Saudi Arabia in the same time period, which one is a bigger issue? Which one is more dangerous? Number is the same, but if you take the rate of crashes on the basis of population, you will find Bahrain has a more dangerous situation as compared to Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying it is. I just gave you numbers for example, okay? These are not actual numbers. I don't know the actual numbers. So 100 accidents happening in Bahrain will be considered more dangerous because it has less population as compared to Saudi Arabia. Okay, because the population is 10 times higher there. If 100 accidents in 10 times higher population is not a big issue, but 100 accidents with a smaller population is a bigger issue. Okay, so you always calculate the rates of accidents. Now these rates can be calculated on the basis of population or on the basis of exposure. Basis of population or on the basis of exposure. In in population-based rates, you divide the number of crashes with a property or characteristic of the area in which the accidents were happening. In population-based rates, you divide the number of crashes or anything related to the crashes with the property or characteristics of the area in which the accident happened. For example, population. Population is something which is counted for the area. Okay, it has nothing to do with the roads. So if you divide the fatalities happening in the crashes or the number of crashes or the involvements in the crashes with the population of the area, then that will be known as a population-based rates. Similarly, vehicles are registered to some address and that address will belong to an area. So if you calculate or if you divide the number of registered vehicles, if you divide the fatality or crashes or involvements in the crashes with the number of registered vehicles, it will be known as population-based rates. Similarly, licensed drivers have their addresses and their addresses are attached to the area. Highway mileage means the length of the highways. So again, each area will have its own length of the highways. Okay. So if you divide the fatalities, crashes, or involvements with the length of the highway, that will be called as population-based rates. Exposure-based rates are mainly what we discuss in exposure control: vehicle miles or vehicle hours. Vehicle miles means multiply the number of vehicles with the length of the trips. Vehicle hour means multiply the number of vehicles with the travel time. So you will get vehicle hours. Okay. But in both cases, miles, more miles means what? More hours, right? More miles means more hours. You are traveling for more miles, that means you are spending more time. Okay. So vehicle miles and vehicle hours are related to each other. So and they are related to they are related to traffic. See, they are not. Vehicle miles and vehicle hours will be measured on the roads. Volume and the length and the time will be measured on the roads. Okay, so exposure-based rates are basically when you divide the crash or the fatality or the involvement in the accident with something related or observed on the road. Okay, so vehicle miles, vehicle hours, and if you have an intersection, if you are observing the accidents on an intersection, then you do not have vehicle miles or vehicle hours, because we already discussed in the previous chapter that intersections do not have lengths and they are considered as a point. So point will not have any time as well. What will be the trip time for an intersection? 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so vehicle hours and vehicle miles will not work on intersection. Then you simply divide it by the volume. Take the crashes or the fatalities or the involvements and divide it with the total volume. Entering vehicles means total volume. Entering vehicle means total volume. We call it VC. In our equations, we call it VC. So what was VC? Total volume from all directions of the intersection. Okay, so if you have an intersection, then you don't calculate vehicle miles or vehicle hours. Just simply take the fatalities, crashes, or involvements, whatever you want to calculate the rate of, and divide by the total volume. Okay, let us do an example here. Okay, and I will just do a simple sample of calculation. I will show you a sample of calculation, and I will leave the remaining calculation to you. Okay, some calculations are already given in the slides as well. Sorry, I'm going over time now. So we have statistics given for a small urban area, okay, and these statistics include the accidents as well as the area characteristics and the traffic characteristics as well. So there were 75 deaths or fatalities in the accidents, and there were 60 fatal accidents, fatal crashes, 60 fatal crashes. So there were 60 accidents in which death happened, and how many deaths happened? 75. So there were some accidents in which more than one death happened. There were some crashes in which more than one death happened. So number of fatal crashes are less, number of fatalities are more. And we have 300 injury crashes and we have 2000 property damage crashes. PDO means property damage only. Property damage only. So in these crashes, nobody got injured, nobody died. In these crashes, in these 300 crashes, 300 somebody got injured but nobody died. And in these 60 accidents, at least one person died. Okay, and then they have given me some other statistics. They're asking me to calculate the fatality and accident rates. I will calculate, or I will show you how to calculate the accident rates, and you will calculate the fatality rates yourself. Okay, whenever you have the time. So for accident rates, first of all, I will find out the total number of accidents. So 60 fatal crashes, 300 injury crashes, and 2000 PDO crashes. 60 fatal, 300 injury, and 2000 PDOs. Total is 2360. Total number of accidents 2360. Added all the accidents. Remember, I added injury crashes, not injuries, or sorry, fatal crashes. I added fatal crashes, not number of fatalities. Okay, number of fatalities was 675. I added the number of accidents which had the fatalities. Okay. Now for calculating the rate, I will see whichever things are given. I will divide the number of accidents with that data. Okay, but for example, if you take rate for vehicle miles, accident rate for vehicle miles. So you have 2360 accidents, and you can see in vehicle miles, this is 1.5 billion. This is 1.5 billion. So 2360 divided by 1.5 billion will give you a very small number. And this will always happen. Number of accidents will always, number of crashes will always be a small number as compared to the data by which you are dividing it. Even if it is population is in thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions and billions. Okay, number of accidents will not be in millions and billions in any case. Okay, so we divide it with the parameter and then multiply with the scale. So with each parameter, you can see a scale is mentioned. For example, vehicle miles traveled, the scale is 100 million. Okay, for population, the scale is 100,000. Okay, so number of crashes will be divided by the parameter and then multiply with the scale. For example, if you want to calculate crash rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, then you will do 2360, which is the number of accidents, divided by 1500 million, which is the vehicle miles traveled, multiplied by the scale, which is 100 million. Okay, then if you need crash rate per population, it is not per population, it is per 100,000 population. And you will take number of crashes divided by the population of the area, which is 300,000 in this case, multiply by the scale, which is 100,000. Okay, if you want crash rate per registered, then registered vehicles are, we have 2360 accidents, registered vehicles are 100,000. So 2360 accidents, 100,000 is the number of registered vehicles, multiplied by the scale, which is 10,000. Okay, if you want crash rate per 10,000, so this was again 10,000. Okay, 10,000 registered vehicles, 10,000 licensed drivers, then it will be number of accidents, number of crashes divided by number of drivers you have. Number of drivers are 150,000, multiplied by the scale, which is 10,000. This is how you calculate the crash rates. Divide by the number and then multiply the scale, and the scales are mentioned here. Okay, I was not saying the scales from my mind or from my judgment. The scales are given here. Population 100,000, registered vehicles 10,000, drivers 10,000, mileage 1,000, vehicle miles 100 million, and so on. Okay, so you will take the scale from here and then divide by this, multiply by the scale. Okay, whenever you divide with the for calculating the crash rate. Okay, already taken extra time here. I'm quickly going for the attendance. So Dua Rabi, Amna Muhammad, Muhammad Usama. Dua Rabi, Amna Muhammad, Muhammad Usama. Okay, Usama is here and Amna is here. Okay. Muhammad Noman, Ali Muhammad, Hakima Ali, Zahra Sayyid. Muhammad Noman, Ali Muhammad, Hakima Ali, Zahra Sayyid. Ali and Zahra, okay. Fawz Adil, Abdullah Jaliluddin, Abdul Rahman Ibrahim, Nujuz Salah. Fawz Adil, Abdullah Jaliluddin, Abdul Rahman Ibrahim, Nujuz Salah. Nadeen Hussam, Zara Riyad, Abu Bakr Ghani, Zainab Ali Ahmad. Nadeen Hussam, Zara Riyad, Abu Bakr Ghani, Zainab Ali Ahmad. Nadeen, Zainab, Abu Bakr, Zara. Okay, Lulba Ibrahim, Maryam Abdul Amir, Masht Bashar, Asil Hassan. Lulba Ibrahim, Maryam Abdul Amir, Masht Bashar, Asil Hassan. Lulba and Maryam. Ali Mustafa, Laila Ahmad, Hamad Khalid, Abdullah Usamuddin. Ali Mustafa, Laila Ahmad, Hamad Khalid, Abdullah Usamuddin. Latifa Ahmad, Fatma Abdali, Zainab Abdali, Zainab Abdulal. Latifa Ahmad, Fatma Abdali, Zainab Abdali, Zainab Abdulal. Ala Salman, Isra Abdul Kareem, Ali Abdul Razak, Elizabeth Ann. Ala Salman, Isra Abdul Kareem, Ali Abdul Razak, Elizabeth Ann. Ali Makki and Ibrahim Muhammad. Ali Makki and Ibrahim Muhammad. Okay, people from section 1. Section 1. Huda, Ibrahim Abdullah, yeah. Okay, anybody else from section 1? We are done. Okay, thank you. Sorry for being late. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.